no recognition. You have to think about that. And if your management see you involved in these kind of things, they can actually say to you, why are you doing this? You are working too hard for no recognition, and it's not you personally. It's our department, it's our faculty, it's our university. So think twice about it. If you want to pursue a sole authored book, you are obliged to start a book. And there's a lot of work involved there. And the reason why you need to do that is because at the moment we have a discussion with the publisher. They want to know. They don't want to waste their money on you. They want some guarantee that the little bit of investment that you put into this book, that you've got a clear idea of where you're going, that you've got a timeline that's going to work, that you've got all of the other aspects in relation to the book that you can meet. And you'll find that when you start doing these kind of applications, by the way, just go online and you'll find hundreds of them, different publishers. They all have their own styles and requirements. But on the whole, you could probably say 70% of what they is covered here. And sometimes this is just asking too much because you don't know where you're going. You know, how many chapters? No. You know, it can change. It can develop. As you're doing the research, you realise, oh my God, left out something. Oops, got to do some more research. So often you might have difficulties in addressing all of these things. However, it's a point that I made to look. If you're going to commit to doing a book, you've got to commit. There's no maybes here. Because I refer to doing a book like a military situation. We take no prisoners. It's either everything or nothing. By the way, it's the biggest threat to the completion of books. Author non-completion. That's the biggest threat. That's what happens. 50% of the time, the author commits and says, I will do this. I will do it by the 1st of January. 1st of January comes, bye-bye. Nothing. You start to get the publisher worried. Okay, because what they do, it's not just money, it's planning. It's putting your book in order in terms of the editing, the printing, the formatting. So they're making commitments and then you stuff it up. You've got to be careful. So printing and doing a book is a serious matter. When you start talking to the publisher, your plan will probably change. But it'll change to suit the publisher often, because it's not an indirect threat to you. It's not changing what you're doing. It's just putting it in a different way. And you're meeting whatever the publisher would like without you selling any principles. You haven't walked away from any of your main principles in terms of publishing. Almost every publisher will ask for a sample chapter. Why? They want to check out a few things. 1, seriousness. 2, quality of the writing. Because the lower the quality of the writing, the more work for the publisher. And maybe the publisher says, this is too much. We can't waste all these resources on fixing up your writing. And also, it's a way that the publisher gets by the author on the project so that they're working together. Finding a publisher. Okay, I said there's a lot of publishers, but they're also becoming very demanding themselves. Everybody wants to publish. They can raise standards, they can raise the bar. It can be harder and harder, particularly new academics, new scholars who are trying to do the world, which is why I always think get into an alliance, do a teamwork with somebody else, learn, see what is done by somebody else who has a little bit more experience, then you can go into that kind of arrangement. Publishers also, and just think of the gossip in your own department. Oh, this is a high quality, this is a low quality. I'm really tired of a lot of that stuff. But unfortunately, some of it now is starting to so that we do have Scopus indexing for publishers, which wasn't the case 3 years ago. I still ignore it, but I can't say that to you because you've got to face the music in relation to publishing. So the higher ranking the publisher, the more demand publisher that makes it equal. Keep that in mind. Often what I want to know, but those of you already gone down this road, you'll remember. They want to know what's so special about your book. Why should we invest in your book if it's just one like many others? If the market is already full of a particular kind of book on a particular kind of theme, why should we invest in your book? And you have to think of what is special about your book. Okay? It's a little bit like when you think of a PhD. What is special about your PhD? If you're just regurgitating everything of the past, who cares? It's done by AI. What is special? What is different? Why are you saying something that others have not said? Now, that can be answered by the data you collect, if you are reviewing your data, by the analysis you're providing. You could be saying something like, well, I'm writing a book on Donald Trump. Most people think he's a nutcase, but I'm going to say, no, he actually does represent Make America First. He's not a nutcase. That's different. And it's not based on new data. We're looking at the same data. We watch the same programs on TV. We read the same articles. But we draw a very different conclusion. And that's what needs to be said to a publisher as to why they should invest in your book, that you are going to approach it very differently. Most publishers will have an editorial committee that decides which books get published and which don't. And I'm on one of them. So we'll be looking at this book on Sanan at the end of the month. But serious publishers will have a committee of that kind. So before they meet, they get the proposals, maybe 4 or 5 of them, and they'll have some kind of ranking order of which ones appear to be the best and worth investing in. And you have to face the same kind of scenario that can happen in relation to the choice. And of course, it can take quite some time. The review process. Now, as far as I know, the publisher I work with will actually send out your book for review. You can sometimes try and subvert the process, particularly if it's a converted PhD. You can make the argument that the PhD has been examined by 2 external examiners. Now, not every publisher will accept that argument, but it is an argument. Otherwise, what happens is that the publisher will ask the author, can you provide 2 names that we can send the book to get a review? And you hope that you give them the right names. That give them your enemies. So they will have a look at your book, make some kind of verdict on it as an independent process. Once you're on the treadmill publishing with a publisher, I cannot overstate, you need to be in synchronization with the publisher. So if the publisher says jump, you jump. And if the publisher says we need to slightly modify certain things, as long as you're not betraying any of your fundamental principles, you do it. And if the publisher says, oh, we've got a deadline, you stick to it. If the publisher says, you know what, the reviewers came back and they thought that chapter 3 was very weak, you really should have another look at it, make some changes. And so the whole process has to be done together. We had that problem, no? Right. So the publisher didn't like certain things. And we thought, well, what the publisher is asking is not unreasonable. Let's do it. And go ahead and please both sides at the same time. That means going through, right through to the very end, which can mean things like and I think Duke got a shock on this issue, is that you think the publisher is Mr. or Mrs. Perfect. Publishers make mistakes too. So you've got to check the work of the publisher. Correct?
Yes.
Because they make mistakes. And they can make terrible mistakes. You know, we got the case of splitting up Vietnamese names in absolutely the wrong place. This is a publisher decision. Thank God she picked it up. So you can't do that. So go back, fix it up. And so you need to go through the whole process, including checking the publisher. Now, one thing you should always keep in mind, when you do a book, if you say something stupid, it's there forever. Right? And that can hurt. If you make some big prediction, it's there forever. So be very careful how you say things. And mistakes are there forever. And it's very embarrassing because guess what? Everybody gets up. They remind you. So you want to be very careful. Get your manuscript checked by friends, by anyone who's got a bit of time to look at it. Not always does the publisher pick it up. And so the cleaner the publisher, the cleaner the manuscript, the better. And as I said, believe me, this is the real world. If you don't, it's garbage in, garbage out. The old computer saying. So even when you get your PDF back, you really need to check it. Research books are read by very few. Is that your experience as well? Do you agree with that? Think that you write a book, people read it, you really. For those of you who've done a book, what's your experience? You tell me. Have you managed to do a book?
Yes, I did in Vietnamese before.
And did many people read your book?
No, not really. People read my book. But I'm really, like you said, I'm very worried about the mistake. And if I have some remaining mistake, it stay there forever.
That's right.
And so very concerned about that. And trying to make it as like not perfectly, but minimize the risk. And
So just to get back to my question, who reads?
no, I don't know. But actually, it's maybe some students they need
PhD students, maybe?
not like undergraduate.
Really?
A lot of these ones.
Yeah, not my way. Of course.
Well, we used to at least say PhD students might read it because, they would have put it in their citations and quote you and all the rest of it. if it's a particular theme that they're pursuing. But look, you know, that's life. You're not going to get a mass audience, but that's not the reason to not do it. So you can, because what it is, what it underscores is your expertise in a particular area and you're spreading the word. And one day someone's going to be doing some particular work around that and they come across your book and say, oh, gee, I never saw that before. And there you are. You've got a chance to say something. This is where maybe you need to talk to the media and publicise your book. By the way, that's also another point of some publishers. Now, this guy said part of the agreement is I want you to do a couple of book launches to guarantee sales. That's in the agreement. Okay? We said, sure, no problem. Helps us, helps him. No. Yeah.
Then only the students who doing PhD, they only do it. But if you are writing Eastern books, so that is definitely good. Read by.
Right.
But yes, the books in IGI Global and the books with the Spencer and all that. So that becomes difficult to sell. What I have seen is like we sell it to the scopers, and with the scopers, when the colleges and the universities they take the scopus publications. So those books go along with them. So I think that is where they're able to make the money from the books. This is what is my observation.
Interesting, yes. Do you get heavily cited on your books?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, so just a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's more or less the same everywhere in everyone. Same
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
But that's one thing we have to live with. But be careful because the way publishing is going, this may well change. Okay, so I think of all of the areas, the books and book chapters will probably get more prominence in the coming period in relation to citations. And I can't tell you how or why, but I think it will happen. So if you are still intent on doing the book, don't be discouraged by the possibility that citations might be reduced. Look, I think you need to follow through a book from the beginning to the end, and that includes the promotion of the book, so selling it, the marketing, doing a discussion with the publisher about the front cover, about the back cover. You'll find that these are very important, including the price of the book. Now, if you go with big publishers, you don't have a lot of control. They decide, and you find that, you know, the book that you were working really hard, that you wanted to do a book launch on, is selling for $250. Well, you know that no one's going to buy at that price. Yeah. And then if you go and look at Amazon, your same book is probably selling at $500. It's crazy stuff. So you're not going to have much influence over the price. However, we've got a publisher who is kind of like a friend. And so when I work with him, I say no. Either we do it for our price or forget about it. So we are how much is the book? $40.
Australian dollar, 700,
40 Australian dollars.
$700,000. Yeah,
Yeah.
30 US dollar. Yeah.
And you know, that means that they've got to make a sacrifice. Because they could do the same game that everybody else does. I've got books done by a number of publishers, just ridiculous. Who's going to buy it? A couple of libraries. There you are, finished. No one else. But I know that with this book, we got a chance of getting greater exposure to ordinary people. And so you have to make a decision as well. You want to find a publisher where you can negotiate the price. I know this doesn't sound very academic, but it's important because you want to get your book out. You're not playing. You don't always have to play the academic game because in relation to your academic history, a book at $300, oh, you give it, oh, great. Nobody's going to buy it. Oh, great. Well, you might want to have a different approach. And if you can't find a sympathetic publisher, it can be very, very helpful. in terms of the price.
No question.
Yeah,
Do you as well negotiate the royalty fees?
repeat that. I've never heard this word royalty fees. What does it mean?
It's like the publisher supposed to.
I know, I'm just being stupid. I have lost money, not made money. My 25 books, okay? So if you think you're going to make money, you're in the wrong room, wrong presentation. If you are a well-known academic doing textbooks and you can get them into the curriculum, well, that's a different matter. But if you're an ordinary researcher, I found that I've paid more, rather than get more. So, yeah, you won't make a penny. You can also probably avoid losing money by being careful, but no, you're not going to make money. That's life. Has anyone had a different experience where they make money in a book? Anyone?
It depends on the project.
Okay.
Some book public out of the projects, and actually the project paid for everything.
The project paid. But where do the books end up? Where do they go?
After that, as you are assuming that you will get your funding, and the book is just kind of achievement, so part of the project, and you don't get money.
Okay. I mean, if you get your book put in a curriculum, and let's say you have, I don't know, accounting, and you've got 2,000 students first year. Oh, what a bonanza. No. But that's a textbook, and it's not your research book. And when an academic, I think, cracks that, they stay on it. They keep going until they die. And the teachers happy. But look at the textbook problem today. Are students buying textbooks? And your experience? In Australia, I don't know any student that buys a book. Not one. So who's buying books?
University.
The library, the university, and maybe 1, 2, 3, max.
Some of
Yeah, maybe. So the students now are finding it to learn about their theme without spending $100 or $50 on it. And in fact, my experience is that academics are now no longer putting text in their course outlines. They're putting suggested readings, and they'll maybe you might get page 25 to 35 from a certain book, but that's about it. So it's become a lot harder. And that's one of the questions the publisher will ask when they're examining your proposal. Can you get your book into the curriculum? It's pretty hard, isn't it? Unless you are doing something directly related, So often the question, will be difficult to answer, and you'll probably go around it, not answer it at all. And what they're looking for is guaranteed numbers of sales. Okay, I think I've said most of what I wanted to say. We're having a conversation, so please.
Yeah, question.
Yeah, go ahead.
One issue you didn't discuss much about is the relationship between author and publisher. What kind of publisher in relationship you want? Sometimes the agreement with publisher ask for maybe 5, 8 years. You cannot change your book. If you want to reprint, have permission. So can you elaborate on that?
That does not come up in research books. It may come up in reference books, textbooks, yes, because you are providing a yearly update of a particular theme every year or every 2 years. And the publisher wants it because they found a market for it, and you've got to commit to updating it. We're talking textbooks, not research books.
In some case, it also related.
Yeah, I've never come across that. So you have.
Maybe in my case, just only happened with some Vietnamese publishers.
Okay, so let me think of a scenario. So you might have done some research on poverty in a certain city, and you yearly or every 2 years update on the direction of this problem and what's happening. Yep, that could be a possibility, yes. So, but, yeah, I don't use that too much. Certainly hasn't been my experience. Sorry. Please.
Hello, so thank you very much, Professor, for your presentation. I think it's really interesting because I'm going to be starting a book today. Which,
Beautiful checks.
yes. Which I want to do a book of simulation racing. So the virtual driving. And I start contacting many researchers at work in the field who gather their opinion, and I start writing the list of possible factors and start to discuss with the author, like which factor can you do and everything. And in English. And my question is, you talk about the reference, and in my case, because I impact the expert, how can I choose a reference that is not in the book? Because there is not so much expert on this field.
Good question. And the way I would answer it is, if I'm the editor, are you the editor?
Yes,
Probably, yes. You are one of the referees. Full stop. Okay, has to be whether you're an expert or not. Then you try and find someone a bit closer to the point. But a reviewer doesn't have to be an absolute expert on the topic. But you can tell when an article stands on its feet and when it doesn't, even if you're not an expert. And so I think you're always making these compromises in life. There's nothing wrong with them. But definitely if you're the editor, or if there's two of you, you both need to read the paper, the full chapter, and then you make your combined review, send it back to the author. You might, are you also contributing a chapter yourself, one or two, maybe? Because that's another problem with when you're the editor. If you're just a donkey editor, you're working hard and not getting anything back. So you always got to do at least one chapter. Otherwise, your own manager will say, I mean, what they say is not right. That's what they say. Is that correct? Would that be correct? You think your manager might say that if you're just dedicating yourself to the book and not getting anything back in return in terms of publication. So one chapter at least you should do. And by the way, a trick in Australia, I don't know elsewhere, you cannot publish in an edited book an introduction. Your management will come back and say an introduction is not a research chapter. By the way, they're right. Generally, they're right. So you can tackle it two ways. She's laughing because we had this conversation. You can either give it a name and a title. It's not introduction, but it's the history of accounting in Hanoi. Or you do the introduction, but remove the intellectual content from the introduction and put it somewhere else in another chapter. Okay, you follow what I mean? You know, I can see blank faces here. Does this happen in other localities where you can't do an edited form, write an introduction? I learned the hard way. I submitted it, and they came back and they said, "No, sorry, we're not counting it." There's no intellectual scholarly content in the introduction. Why? Because I'm saying the purpose of this book is to do blah blah blah, and the book and the chapter by Duke talks about X, and the chapter by it's kind of well, it can be introduction too. It can be introduction as well.
Yes.
It can also be a preface if you want that.
That is when we get this focus. So we get, if we had one related book, so we get two Scopus publications in there. One is for preface and one is for the book.
Okay,
So when we open the Scopus database, we got two publications is being shown.
Right.
So
Well,
this is what you are talking about.
yes.
The preface or the introduction.
yes.
Yes.
I mean, look, sometimes you really don't care. You say, I don't care. She doesn't care. And just do it. Why? Because it's the right thing to do, even if I'm not getting recognition. But if you really do care, then, you know, you may want to change the chapter 1 or introduction or whatever it is and give it some content. Okay? And same problem with conclusion. Exactly the same problem. So don't just do conclusion unless you don't care.
Is it very long? How many pages?
Each book is different. I mean, for me, a conclusion is fundamental. It's what I wanted to say. It's the summary of everything I wanted to say. So if someone, just like, think of PhDs. In Australia, they say the examiners of a PhD really read chapter 1 and really read the conclusion. Maybe because they don't understand everything in between. Who knows? But they're the two ones that they generally will read 2 or 3 times. Because they want to understand, what is this person talking about? And do it quickly. I think the same thing. I think conclusion is fundamental to a book. Now, a conclusion doesn't have to be called a conclusion. You know, you can give it other names, but it is critical.
Sometimes I found on the page some recent books. Introduction, maybe the editor will have an overview,
Yes,
like literary reviews of the topic, and narrow down the topic and discuss in each chapter.
correct.
And it is introduction, maybe it is recognition by the editor.
Yes,
So
yes,
one introduction includes content of the
Yes.
books.
yes,
And for the conclusion, they also have the forward, like the future forward, or like a horse for the next discussion, or open the new discussion for the next chapter, or even for the next volume or something.
yes.
In such case, it is conclusion and remarks. The remarks maybe contents include some contents, and sometimes we found very important idea or the important discussion point for the next research and something else.
Yep.
And maybe it different from one is the editor who wrote the introduction, and different one who wrote the conclusion and forward. And I think in this case, it's a lot of ideas and good concludes and good opening for the next.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Um,
I have some
Please.
questions related to some research paper, and because some author we have different research from different views. They publish article already, but some of them they have some news update on their article, and we would like to connect some of them into these books or reference books.
absolutely.
It's okay.
Absolutely, yes. You know, the thing is this, you are the one that is proposing the ideas. And as long as you're not stealing ideas from others, and that you are bringing in new material, new analysis, new criticisms, then that's what makes a book interesting. Every publisher I know says, I want to read something interesting. And that's why we've got a problem with the PhDs. By the way, can I just ask, so for those of you who've done a PhD, did you try and publish the PhD more or less? Yeah? And how did you do that? How much did you change? Probably the best question. You
Exactly my case. PhD turned to the book, and I trained about 20%.
20%. That sounds right. Okay. You mean you did a summary of it and published as a journal article. And that's normally that's the way you make your way towards a book. Is you do a couple of those, and then at a certain point you say, you know what, I'm ready to make the leap to a book. The only issue that might crop up is First of all, timing. So PhDs go out of date very quickly. And nobody's interested in reading the data of 15 years ago. You know, so it doesn't mean you throw out the work, but it might mean you might do a longitudinal study of the particular, whatever you did in terms of data collection, and do another one now. And then that gives you a whole analysis to do on a study between two time periods. And that could be a chapter of a book, theoretically, yeah? What about literature review? How do you handle a literature review in the context of a book? What would you do? You know, you've all done a literature review at some level, yeah? Basically, what you're doing is you're looking at what is it that people are saying on this particular theme, yeah? Yeah, explain.
And now we can, the help of the previous papers, we can write essay on the bibliometric analysis.
Yeah,
Only in literature, meta-analysis as
right.
well.
I'm sort of trying to go, the way I look at the literature review is I kind of call it context and then bring it a little bit more forward to today so that when someone's reading, they're getting an idea of a particular theme and the context that you're presenting it in by many other people. So they're confirming your analysis or your context, and you're also showing that you are not scared of using other people correctly sourced and so on, because you do want to know what is the thinking on this particular point, even in a book. That you don't just want to read, you know, the one person. You want to know what does everybody else think as well. And so, in that sense, I think you can keep a literature review, but you just do that to it. You turn it around. So it's work that, you know, you're not throwing away. But I agree on the percentages. It's roughly 20% goes bye-bye, and probably most of it is methodology. Would that be?
Or something that you don't think the audience will be interested to know.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yep. So I've always had a literature review in my books, but I never called it that. I called it something else. And it worked. Sometimes you give it a theme, and maybe it can even be a historical analysis of a particular item. And maybe it becomes two chapters, not one. Now, one of the things that always happens with a book is that you sometimes have to do more research, right? So even if you've done a really solid PhD, there will be gaps. You can't leave them like that. And so extra research is a requirement. And that's not just stealing other people's ideas, but giving an analysis to it. All right. Good question. Don't talk the dog. Don't talk the dog. Look, I think if you did, sorry, look. Sorry, but I have to say the truth. Because it can look very marked. And people will pick that up. Now, she had a different reason for doing it. Therefore, it was right. But I would not do more than two. It just looks like you're running the show. And yeah, be careful. And same thing with the amount of authors. When we see any paper, because I was Associate Dean Research for a period of time, when we see a paper with more than 3 names, we get the binoculars out. Okay? All right, who's stealing from who? So don't even bring this attention to yourself. If there's more than 3 people, sorry, I should apologize. In the hard sciences, they do this all the time. correct? For those of you who have some familiarity, you know, with engineering and, you know, with physics, they might have 6, 7, 8, 10 names. I know it's ridiculous, but I think it's more tolerated in the hard sciences, not the social sciences. So you really want to be careful there to not overdo it with too many authors. And what you do is you come to an agreement with your colleagues, you know, look, this paper we have these three, and then the next paper you have the following. As long as everyone's contributing and it's not just, you know, the supervisor of the PhD is getting all the credit for what the students do.
Thank you, Professor Bruno. I have the question because in the beginning you said there are some predator publisher, right?
So what?
Some predator publisher.
Yeah.
Yes, and I myself have some experience. They invite a lot of link, like I have the name of the publisher.
Yes.
But they require a lot of very expensive price.
Yes.
For publishing our paper or something.
This is for papers, not for books.
Particularly for one chapter, it requires 1,000 pounds or $1,000 above. Yes, and some publishers like this. And could you please introduce some good publisher for us, especially for academic
So
research?
in relation to that problem,
Yeah.
do you have a person responsible for research in your university?
Uh,
You. So what advice do you give him?
I hear from all the time.
Okay, what advice do you give to everybody?
No, because we have a list over here, because there's a professorship association, right? And they have a list of recommended publishers to follow.
Okay.
And then they have a list for like kind of their list, you know that.
Yeah.
So these are the not recommended
Right.
publishers.
Okay.
And
When the non-recommended publishers, because they charge or because they've got a poor reputation or what?
I don't know. I just know that they are in the list. So every year they update this.
Okay.
Right? So something they charge. Sometimes they have like a fake citation, for example. Then that. And what we do is like what I recommend the people every year is we try to avoid the publishers because there are many good publishers.
So what do you say to your colleague there?
I'd have to read my email.
So what does your email say?
Huh?
What does your email say?
No, we have the decision, right? This kind of communication every year. So I have the list.
the list.
And then they just go in and look at which one they can be publishing and which one should avoid.
Now, while I'm listening to you not answering the question, I suspect that you're saying, forget about it, don't do it.
No, I'm not saying that.
No, you're not saying that. Pay $1,000. Yeah? Okay. Oh, right. So you're saying not to, yeah, right. I agree. I would agree. We can't, once you open up the door, it doesn't finish. And so unfortunately, and it's up to the university to find the best possible policy in relation to these problems. And they're going to happen all the time. And it's getting worse, not better, I think. Is that correct? Yeah.
It's hard to sometimes to monitor it because the publisher can be in the list, out the list. Right? So like sometimes I think, okay, this is not, it happened to be one of the published articles that I had was Q2 scopus. So I published in there. Right? So like after a few months, it was removed from scope. See?
Right.
So I cannot do anything.
Is anyone here a participant of the running of a journal? Either editor, sub-editor, in the editorial board where you're actively working, not just a name on the list? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So how hard is it getting to keep a journal going today? Remember, there's more demand now, isn't there?
Yes.
Without any doubt. Your time is limited. Who's doing the sub-editing in your journal?
Sub-editing, we have a different section for that. Sub-editing, but once the paper is finalized, this is what the sub-editing is basically.
Yeah, but
Yeah, so we have a
it's a
different.
big job.
Yeah, so we have a different section for that.
Okay.
Like we are not the one who is responsible.
Right.
Once the paper is submitted and finalized, so it goes on to the next.
Got it.
So, in your next area that you pass the problem on to, they have limited time. They might even be academics, maybe not, but the workload just gets higher, particularly if they want to maintain the quality. Yeah. So, guess what's happening in the publishing world is that you are now starting to see genuine journals say we can't do this without asking for money. Because we don't have the people who are there to just do this work for nothing. So we have to be mindful of that, in your situation, that this is becoming more and more, certainly in the journal that I was involved in, the lady that did the work, my God, how much work she put into it. And while she wasn't maybe working full time, it was okay. But then when she's got her own responsibilities, it's not fair. So at some level, we had to hire someone. Now, we decided to absorb the costs ourselves at first, but how long can that go? Sooner or later, you've got to start charging. So that's going to throw more confusion in the publishing world, that you don't have a predatory journal, but they want money. For good reason, not for bad reason. So let's just be aware of that, because it's going to happen more and more, especially as more articles are coming in. And, remember, one of the things to get Scopus and all the other recognition is you've got to have a long timeline of consistent publishing. If you don't keep it up, bye-bye. Scopus will say, what happened in, 2017? You went down to one issue a year. We don't normally accredit journals when they have this inconsistency. And, you might defend yourself and say, well, we had a tough time, and the lady who does the sub-editing, was having a baby or something and wasn't available. So the publishing world is, is quite vibrant. All right. I have one question. You
Last one.
here, not me. I didn't realize you were the research guru. Go. No, I just wrote a chapter with Springer. So this one I want to share because my colleague is publishing a book as well. So there was an Italian guy who gathered like maybe 30 chapters from many people from all over the world, and we had one. So he sent the request maybe in February this year, and we submitted the manuscript. And then we did revisions like 3 times. And I sent him the final revision in June.
The revision of your chapter.
Yeah, and he accepted, right? And then in July, I think he sent an last email to everybody and said, okay, I sent the final version to Springer, right? And from July till here, like already November, right? And I asked him a few days ago and I said like, no answer from Springer yet. So my question is like, how long did that take because it has to do with my dissertation. That's the only article that I have which is very related to my PhD.
When it's such a big project like that, so many things can go wrong. You don't know the person very well, or probably at all, do you?
We don't know
at all. And so it's a lottery, because you're in the person's hands. You're hoping this person is reliable, it's ethical, it's all. It's such a big project that I'm sorry, but these things happen, and that's where we get back to your collaborators. You work with this guy here, you know him, you can rely on him,
But it's so big that the light with my
but when you go to these mass, book chapter scenarios, then you're taking a risk. Sometimes it's still worth taking the risk, just simply, but don't expect 100%, because when someone's in another country, I've had this same problem. And if you had 30 chapters, really 30 chapters, I wouldn't take that seriously.
No, not me. I mean, like 30 groups of people. The book has 30 chapters.
Right,
I have only one.
right. 30 chapters. So there's at least 30 authors. At least, probably soon. So that's a big project. So many things can go wrong. And sorry, I don't know what to say. That's human nature. It's not even a question of publishing. People just sometimes, remember, everyone's got their own life. You don't know what they're doing.
No, but the problem is, I think the 30 chapters have been finished. And then the Italian guy sent the final version to Springer. So I believe that Springer is processing that draft, right?
So have you asked what's going on?
He said that's no update from Springer yet.
Okay.
It was only 2 weeks.
Right.
I don't know how long.
Look, it could be that there's nothing wrong. It's just taking a bit of time. But they should be more responsible because if there's 30 chapters, there's a lot of people involved. You keep them updated. In fact, it's one of the things that we were talking about when we did our own book, is that when you are the editor of a book, you have a real serious responsibility with the authors.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they put a lot of investment in that chapter. For them, it's it's do or die. And if you just treat them like another, then it's bad behavior. So I think a responsibility towards an author, whoever they are, including in the revision process and things like that, keeping them up to date is a major responsibility of the editor. Again, they don't get any credit for it, but they've got to do it because you are the project manager of that particular project. So you've got to keep everybody on board. And if the word gets round, whatever that Italian guy is, you should tell me his name. I might even know. He'll lose a reputation if he's a charlatan like that. Yeah. All right. I think it's time for coffee.
Yeah.
Sure. I've had enough. If you are interested in our book, I think she's selling it at a special price. What's the special price?
A special bonus, a signature and a photo with Bruno.
That's nothing special.
This is.
Yeah.